Hello UPL, it's Ashenmore, finally back with the last battle of the season, which is of course, the finals, against Big Shone's Tennessee Red Gyarados. He's still undefeated, and it is going to be a tough battle, but we certainly have the tools to win, so let's get on with the team building. So if you see his team list in the top right, last time he brought both of his defensive grass types beyond my expectations in Ferrothorn and Amoonguss. So this time, I will be starting out with Alolan Marowak to deal with those threats. Obviously, you're going to need Flare Blitz. That's going to KO both of them easily. The other moves, Stealth Rock should be pretty easy to set up against his team. There are a plethora of different mons that I can sit in front of, force out, and put Stealth Rocks up when he expects me to do an attack. Both the defensive grass types, Rotom Heat and Vikavolt, are pretty easy to set those rocks up against. The other move, Thunder Punch, that's going to be coverage for Alomomola, because it'll 2H KO that, and also for the Gyarados, if we can predict that switch in. Even with the minus attack, we'll still get a kill on that Gyarados. Knockoff is the other move, that will OHKO the Latios, and also just allow me to hit switch-ins. Like, if he does try to switch in the Rotom Heat to absorb a fire attack, now we do 50% damage, and we knock off maybe an important item. The last thing to think about with Alolan Marowak is what ability we're going to run, whether it's going to be Rock Head or Lightning Rod. Now, Lightning Rod would allow us to better check Vikavolt and the Rotom Heat, because those are the main counters to Celesteela, and he'll absolutely have one of them. But Rock Head will allow us to conserve a little bit of HP, rather than taking, half of our life off of Iron Barbs and Recoil from Ferrothorn to kill it. While that would be a decent trade, now suddenly we can't really counter the Latios and we can't take a Scald from the Alomomola, and so I value a little bit more that recoil chip damage than I do the immunity to electric types. Now, one of the big issues that I encountered when trying to build this team was his Mimikyu. He did not bring it last time, but I do expect that he'll probably bring it this time, and so I have a dedicated answer specifically for that in Weezing. Now, one of the big issues that I encountered when trying to build this team was his Mimikyu. He did not bring it last time, but I do expect that he'll probably bring it this time, and so I have a dedicated answer specifically for that in Weezing. Obviously, the biggest problem with Mimikyu is having it set up behind its Disguise Shield. So if we switch in Weezing, we can use Haze, we can survive any hit at all with our defensive investment and with Black Sludge. Doesn't even matter if he's at +2, he can't even 2KO us. Now, beyond Haze, Will-O-Wisp is great because Disguise does not block it, and I highly doubt he's going to run Substitute along with it. Sludge Bomb is going to be our general coverage move. That's going to deal with most things. Usually it's going to do about 25%. It'll do about 25% to the Gyarados, so it should break its sub every time. The last move was a toss-up between Flamethrower and Pain Split, whereas Pain Split gives us better recovery. Flamethrower prevents the Ferrothorn from coming in, setting up a hazard for free. That's something that I want to avoid having happen, and also it's important to get rid of that Ferrothorn as early on in the game as possible to clear the way for our last mon that we're going to be running. The next Pokemon I'll be running is Licky. We're going to be running him with Normalium Z this time around, and specifically we're going to be running Z Explosion. So obviously I've run the Explosion sets several times throughout the league, sometimes to large effect, sometimes to no effect. But I expect that if I'm running Licky, he's going to think it's going to be an Explosion set, kind of like I've brought the last few times. So the idea this time around is to kind of fake him out. If I can put Licky out there, expecting him to switch into something to absorb that Explosion, I could actually Swords Dance. And then Fire Punch, Thunder Punch, those will kill his main two switch-ins that could survive an Explosion, namely Alomomola and the Ferrothorn. However, once I have actually done a Swords Dance, Z Explosion will kill anything on his team that's not Ferrothorn, or obviously Mimikyu because it's immune, and then I can hit Explosion right afterwards to kill something else. So the idea would be that you force out one of his mons with the threat of an Explosion, you Swords Dance instead, then you Z Explosion, then you actually Explosion, or a coverage move. Basically, you get two very strong hits off before this guy goes down, and that's really what we're going for here. The main issue is going to be if we end up having one of those hits absorbed by Mimikyu and not getting any value out of it. I think one of the things that's going to be the difference between me winning the game and losing the game is, can I get at least one, if not two, kills with this Licky. Okay, so that deals with his tanks, it deals with his Mimikyu, but he also has two other top-tier offensive threats in his Mega Gyarados and his Mamoswine, which he often runs Scarf. I'm going to be running pretty much the same build of Thunderous T that I ran the first time. Scarf with Discharge, basically for the Gyarados, Grass Knot for the Mamoswine, Volt Switch as just a general momentum move, and then Dark Pulse for the Latios and anything else. It also 2 HKOs Rotom Heat, which is pretty nice. There's not much more to be said for it than that. Obviously, this time I'll be more focused on conserving it until both of its key threats that it's going to be countering are out of the picture. Last time, one of the key factors for us losing that game was sacrificing our Thunderous T very early on against the Rotom Heat, and we didn't even knock the Rotom Heat out. So really, we lost a lot of value there. I'm going to try to not have that happen this time. Speaking of the Rotom Heat, we're obviously going to be running Celesteela. Outside of Electrium Z Latios, Rotom Heat, and Vikavolt, literally nothing on his team can touch the Steela or kill it. If we can get rid of those three threats, which I don't expect he's going to have all three of them, we can really just set this thing in front of him and just do whatever we want. We're going to be running Leech Seed and Leftovers and just generally a very bulky build. We're going to be boosting off of defense. Heavy Slam is going to be our coverage move of choice. Shockwave is going to be there to guarantee that we're going to break that Gyarados sub. That's what the 128 special attack investment points are for. It's to guarantee Mega Gyarados substitute is broken by that Shockwave. That was another reason why we lost last time around. We wasted that turn switching in Steela against the Gyarados, even knowing that we did not have that Shockwave in order to be able to break that sub. Speaking of substitute, we'll actually be running it on Steela. The main reason for this is because his best switch-in to Steela is Amoonguss. And obviously Amoonguss is going to try to set up Spore on us. If we substitute, we will always outspeed it. We'll avoid that Spore, and then basically we can sit back and relax and do whatever we want to do. Last but not least is going to be our primary win condition, our sweeper, Mega Diancie. A combination of Moonblast and Diamond Storm will either OHKO or 2 HKO every single thing on his team, sans Ferrothorn. And we're going to be running Hidden Power Fire in order to cover that guy. The last move slot I didn't really need for any coverage moves, so I just opt to run Protect, just in case he's got some other trick up his sleeve. Also, it can lock the Mamoswine into Earthquake, and then we can go into something Earthquake immune, waste time for him there. One last note about Mega Diancie, its speed is base 110. Latios' speed is base 110. If the Latios is running a grass coverage move, if the Diancie has prior damage on it, or if it's running something like Psychium Z, this match could potentially come down to a speed tie between the two. Obviously, that's something we want to try to avoid, but that's one thing to kind of think about. Anyway, that's the team for the finals. We'll see if we can take a win against Big Shone in the battle coming up now. Welcome to the battle portion of the video. My initial thoughts looking at the team lineup is no Rotom Heat, no Mamoswine, no Ferrothorn, so I'm feeling pretty good about this. However, he does have Vikavolt. I am expecting there might be some shenanigans going on with that. He does have the Mimikyu, which I really did not want to see, and he does have the double regenerator core, so he is going to have a lot of options that he can do. Now, initially, I'm looking at this. If I can break the disguise early on, and if I can get rocks up, Mega Diancie has an absolute field day KOing this team. So that's something I'm going to be looking to try to do as early on as possible. It was really difficult to determine what he might lead. I thought maybe Vikavolt, maybe Latios. I thought Latios was a little bit more likely. I thought about leading with Alola Marowak and probably would have been a better idea. But my other thought was, hey, I can just go ahead and get value off Licky Licky right off the bat. Why not go ahead and start with that? So that's exactly what I lead. He ends up sending out Vikavolt. I go ahead and go for the Swords Dance, and he goes for a Thunderbolt. Now, something to think about here, he ended up going first. Vikavolt's base 45 speed, Licky Licky is base 50 speed. This means that he has some investment. He might be fully invested, he might be Scarf, it just depends. But since he's going to do under half, unless he was Specs, I have no problem with taking that damage. So I'm going to go ahead and go for Z Explosion. He does Volt Switch out. I'm praying it's not Mimikyu. It absolutely is Mimikyu, so bad news for me. And I'm going to lose this Licky for really no value whatsoever. So I go ahead, I'm going to force him out with my Celesteela, he's going to immediately switch out, obviously because he can't do anything to the Steel with the Mimikyu, into Amoonguss, absorbing my Leech Seed. Now, Amoonguss is probably going to go for Spore. That's what my thought is. So, I mean, if I didn't have Substitute, I'd have to switch into something else and get that Spored. But I do have Substitute, so I am going to be able to go ahead and just sub, absorb that Spore. No big deal. Go for a Heavy Slam. We're going to do a whole lot of damage, so he's not going to be able to stay in. He goes for Clear Smog. Not really sure why he went for that play. And then he's going to get forced out. I assume that he's going to switch out, so I go ahead and Leech Seed that Alomomola. Drain a little bit of HP off of it, whatever. He's going to right back out into Amoonguss, and I'm going to show Shockwave. Now, I was thinking about, hey, do I click Shockwave now? Do I not click Shockwave now? I thought he might switch out because the Alomomola was Leech Seeded, but I also thought maybe he might go for some other sort of play. I don't really know why I thought that, but now he knows all 4 moves that Celesteela has, and that's not necessarily the best place for me to be in. So he will switch into the Amoonguss. He will absorb that Shockwave, go right into Vikavolt. I'm going to Heavy Slam it. It's good to get a little bit of chip damage on it. Go ahead and Leech Seed it, and he goes for the Volt Switch. Now, why did I go for Leech Seed there? I figured he would Volt Switch me and go out into Alomomola, but because he was faster than the Licky Licky earlier, and I have no speed investment on Steela, my thought is that he will actually be faster than the Steela. So what I learned here is he probably only has just enough speed investment to outpace that Licky Licky, but not enough. He's not fully invested into speed, so he probably has a little bit of bulk going on. So I'll go ahead and go into Thundurus to force out the Alomomola, and we'll Volt Switch out of that Vikavolt, and he will get healed up back to full. My idea here was, hey, I can Volt Switch, I can go into Marowak, he'll probably go into Vikavolt, and now I can get Rocks up really easily. So go ahead and do Rocks. He goes into Mimikyu directly, and I'm just going to stay in and hit Knockoff. Why? Because I assume he's going to go for that Sword Stance. It's basically a free move for him. However, I can go ahead and get that Disguise right now, and I can get rid of whatever item he happens to be carrying. If it's Life Orb, that's going to be a really big deal. If it's Red Card, that'll be a big deal, and it does turn out to be the Red Card. At this point, he has 2 options. He can go for a Shadow Claw, which is what I expect he's going to do, because if he does not, my Flare Blitz would kill Mimikyu, but I can easily just go into my Weezing, which is my dedicated counter, and take that Shadow Claw, no problemo. So he's going to go for another Swords Dance. I'm just going to go for the Will-O-Wisp. Easy peasy. Now he's burned. He's going to go for another Swords Dance. I'm going to go for Haze. Now he has no boosts at all. And now we can start chipping him down, alternating between Haze and Sludge Bomb until he finally switches out or the Mimikyu is dead. Either way, works fine for me. This is one of the main things I need to get rid of in order to sweep with Mega Diancie later on in the game. So we're just going to go for that Sludge Bomb again, and then now because Haze isn't really going to do anything for us, hey, why not just go ahead and click Sludge Bomb again. Boom. And the Mimikyu is out of commission. Now he goes into Latios. So my thought here, and I took a little bit of time on this turn, is how could he screw me up with Latios? Well, the best way would be if he's a Calm Mind variant. So my thought process here on this first turn was, I'm just going to click Haze until he gives up. And just kills the Weezing, because I cannot have this thing with a Calm Mind boost. Now, another thing I thought about was, if I click Sludge Bomb and he goes Calm Mind, I will still be able to kill him with Diancie. However, the game is going to come down to a speed tie at that point, and that gives me only a 50% chance to win. So how can I maximize my chances? Well, probably just by clicking Haze. Also, it's important to note, this is the only Pokemon he can possibly have a way to get rid of Rocks on. So my thought process is, let's see what this guy's moves actually are. And if I think he's going to go for a Defog, I might go for a Sludge Bomb. So he goes ahead and goes for Thunderbolt, probably expecting me to switch in Celesteela, which is a pretty good prediction. So at this point, I'm kind of thinking he's probably Electrium Z like I thought in my team builder. Why not go ahead and go for the Sludge Bomb, expecting that he's going to think I'm going to go for Haze again. Maybe he'll go for a Defog. But no, he goes for that Calm Mind. We will still get him in range of the Diancie, but at this point, we are going to go down to a Psychic, and so now we know 3 of his moves. He could have another coverage move, highly unlikely. The problem here is, now it comes down to a speed tie. If we lose this speed tie and he's something like Psychium Z, we are not going to win this game. However, this also kind of factored into my thought process earlier on. If he was Psyche MZ, he would still do 105% minimum to Mega Diancie or to Alola Marowak. So either way, I was going to put one of these things out there, and they were going to die. I probably should have gone with the Marowak, but I went with the Mega Diancie because if I won the speed tie, I won the game. There was no question about that. He will go first, he will Shattered Psych, and he will kill the Mega Diancie, unfortunately. He can't take out the Marowak, though. Knockoff is going to finish him off, but the damage is kind of already done. I'm going to go ahead and switch out of this Gyarados into Thundurus. Hopefully, maybe I can kill it. I will absorb that Waterfall. I just go for the Discharge, whatever. Vikavolt out. Discharge again. My thought process here is he doesn't have anything that can actually kill the Celesteela besides Vikavolt, so maybe I'll get a lucky crit on Heavy Slam. Doesn't happen. So now we're down, sitting at 1% with the Celesteela. We will take out the Vikavolt, but it's a little too late, unfortunately. And then we're going to get taken out here by the Mega Gyarados with the Waterfall. There's not really anything we can do to stop it. And Big Shown will win the game, and he'll win the season. Yeah, so if we're looking back at the battle, what could we have done differently? Mainly that speed tie. It really shouldn't have come down to that. There's a couple of ways we could have played differently to avoid such a thing. Not losing the Licky Licky earlier on would have allowed us to put it in against that +1 Latios and really ignore any attack that it did and force it out with the Z Explosion or regular Explosion. That would have been a solution. Had we continued to just click Haze repeatedly on the Weezing, that could have potentially saved us the game as well, because at that point we could have switched in Marowak. Marowak would have either killed the Latios or absorbed the Z move, one or the other, and then we could have put in Mega Diancie. Another way we could have potentially won is if it did not have the Calm Mind boost. Protect on Mega Diancie would have actually allowed us to survive a combination of regular Psychic and the 25% damage from a partially absorbed Psyche MZ. So there were ways that we could have gotten around that play had we just kept clicking Haze on Weezing. I think that's the main part where we went wrong. Yeah, the deal at the beginning with Licky did not help either. I really should have led with the Alola Marowak. I had already led a lot of battles with Alola Marowak, though, so I kind of thought that he might suspect that would be the case. Either way, congratulations to Big Shown. He played a perfect season. He definitely deserves to take the title here. I will have one more video that's going to come out kind of talking about my team, how it did compared to how I expected it might do, and I'll talk a little bit about the nicknames that I chose and why I chose them. So look forward to that here shortly. Otherwise, it's been really fun playing with the UPL this season. I don't think there are really any bad battlers in the entirety of the league. I was definitely pushed a bit harder than I have been in the past couple of seasons that I played with other leagues. So I definitely appreciate that, and I'm looking forward to playing with you guys in the future. Anyway, peace out.